All right, welcome back to AI for Real Estate. Today we're doing the first video in the foundation section. So this will be everything you need to know about using make.com. We'll jump in, set up an account, and teach you everything that's actually important on the platform, everything you can ignore, and make sure that you're ready to not only follow along with the videos in Skool, but also build your own systems for your own business and do some custom things with Make. So first thing, pricing. Definitely recommend starting out at this $10 a month tier. The only reason I wouldn't say start out with free is they cap you at 2 active scenarios. So there's not a lot you can do with that. And it looks like this just updated from 1,000 to 2,000 apps. So there's a fair amount you can do with free. So if you're really only planning on using 1 or 2 different scenarios, free might work for you. But if you're using Make in any serious capacity, definitely jump on this $10 a month plan. So we'll click Get Started Free. That's just going to have you plug in an email and a password, and it's going to log me straight into my account. Okay, so this is the landing page. The organization tab here is the first thing you'll see every time you log in. A couple things here. You've got that dashboard view, so you can see your monthly plan, how many operations you have, how many are unused for the month, and when that will be reset. So especially if you're on a free plan, that's an important thing to keep an eye on. You can kind of see which days I've used the most data and operations, and this just lets you make sure you're not getting close to your limit on any of these. Teams and users, this is just if you have multiple people within a single account. If you're doing that, Make has you upgrade to like a $40 a month plan, so we're not going to look into that at all. Subscription is just the different payment plans, so if you want to upgrade your plan or add additional operations, if you're hitting your limit, you can just jump in here and do that here. Payments will just show your payment history, the full billing history as long as you've had a Make account. Installed apps, this will only show separate third-party apps. So Make has something like 7,000 different platforms they integrate with, and make.com has built out all of those modules and connections. But every once in a while you'll come across something that there is not a default app for, and then you might have to find a third-party provider that builds a specific module. So very rare case. I found KV Core did not have an app. KV Core is a popular real estate CRM that we use a lot with my office, and so I paid some third-party company $30 to use their make.com integration, and then I realized KV Core has an API, and maybe we'll make another further foundations video about using APIs because they're a lot less scary than they sound, and it saves you $30 in situations like this. And then variables and scenario properties, we can ignore all of this. That's not stuff you need to worry about. Again, team is only if you're on a team account. Scenarios is where we'll be spending 99% of our time, so we will bounce right back here. Templates, this is a really good place to start. If you're trying to brainstorm, how can I use this in my own business? What can I do that will benefit me and move me forward? Honestly, just start here, scroll through, read through some of these different apps. This is basically exactly like what I do in Skool. I've got all these blueprints in here for different systems we've built out. That's the same thing with these templates. So you can see what other people have built and posted. This says when they receive a specific email, send it to ChatGPT, strip out the data. Not sure what exactly they're doing with it, but they're making LinkedIn posts and then emailing them back to themselves. There was another good one I saw earlier. Let's see. Add competitor followers to a Google Sheet. Create a document from a template from Airtable. Airtable's another database, just like Google Sheets. Anyways, lots of cool things you can do in here. Scroll through. You might find something cool that you just want to copy into your account and start using. We'll move on and not get stuck too long here. So we've got connections. This is every account I've ever connected to make.com. So every different email I've ever used for Google, every different connection I've made to OpenAI, Stripe, Twilio. So if the only time you'll need to come in here is if you have to reauthorize an account. So for example, some of these Google accounts will only last for 6 months. So any of the @gmail.com connections, I have to reauthorize every 6 months. That's the only time I ever jump in this tab. Otherwise, don't worry about that. Same with webhooks. This will show a history of every webhook you've set up, but not something you'll ever need to really look at. And then in here, let's see. So keys, this is if you're saving API keys in this section that you can reference in other scenarios. I never do this. I just hard code it directly in. Devices, this is if you set up a scenario that triggers based on something you do on your phone. So I had one where I set up a trigger just as a widget on my iPhone screen, and when I tap the button on my home screen, it triggers the whole automation. So this, you can see different devices that are connected to your Make account. You can delete those or add new devices. And then data stores and structures. I don't touch these at all. I found it's just better to work with third-party data platforms like Airtable or Google Sheets, something like that, and just pull data to and from there and not worry about learning a whole new data platform. And then custom apps, another one you'll never have to worry about. This is if you're building your own modules and doing the back-end coding. So again, unless you're a developer, you'll never need to worry about this one. So let's jump into scenarios. This, if you've just set up an account, will be blank. You'll see all scenarios and uncategorized here. You can create a new folder, add a name. I try and keep everything semi-organized because I don't know how many scenarios I've got at this point, 67. So it gets really messy if you're just scrolling through here every time trying to look for something specific. So use folders as best as you can. I'll jump into here and we will come up here to click create a new scenario and walk through the scenario builder. So first important thing in here is the name up in the top left. So I try and name it based on what it does. So for this, let's say Facebook page to email notification. And then sometimes I add an emoji just because it makes it nicer to look at. Let's say email or just mail. Cool, I like this one. Okay, so always name it, makes it really easy to keep track of. And then down at the bottom here, let me pause and get a drink. All right, down at the bottom, we've got kind of our controls for the scenario. So we can click this play button to run it once. You'll use that a lot when you're testing. Otherwise, you can set up the timing system. So you can choose how often it runs, and it's not going to let me play with that till I click save. All right, we'll come back to that. So this just chooses how often you want it to run, if you want it every couple minutes, if you want it to run on specific days of the week, specific days of the month. There's a whole bunch you can do with the scheduling. Save button, get familiar with that. I cannot tell you how many times starting out I would spend over an hour building something and then not hit save and lose everything. And man, that's frustrating. So get familiar with the save button, use it a lot. Scenario inputs, you can ignore this. We will never touch that. Scenario settings, the only thing I ever change in here is this piece right here. Allow storing of incomplete executions. Oops. Right here. I toggle that to yes, and that just lets us do some error handling, which I've talked about a little in some of the tutorial videos we've done, but we'll go over that again here. And then notes, if you want to add a note to each module. You know what, let's just start building this and then we can use some of these features as we go. So I'm going to say Facebook pages. So the first the first module in each scenario is called the trigger. So anything you set up in here, basically you're watching for something to happen or something to change, and that's what's gonna, be the first domino that trips the whole rest of the scenario to activate. So in this case, we're going to say Facebook pages. I'm going to say watch posts on a public page. So then anytime a new post is made, it triggers the automation. So anytime you connect a new module that is a third-party system, you'll have this connection up at the very top. That's the first thing you want to do. So you will click add. You'll want to name it, your Facebook account, and then it's also helpful to add a date if you can. So if I say Feb 13, 2025 and save, and then this will bring me over to Facebook. It will have me confirm that I want Facebook to have access, or make.com to have access to my Facebook account. I'm going to cancel this because I've already added that. So that's first thing you'll do in any new module, set up a connection. And then each one of these will be different, and Make is pretty good at giving instructions for each field within these. So for example, the page ID, it says if the page URL is this whole thing, then all we want is the bit after facebook.com. So we'll do that. I've just come to the Equity Real Estate Facebook page. We'll plug in this whole thing, and then we'll delete all of that and just save the bit after facebook.com. Okay, and then the limit, I'm going to say we'll grab the last 3 posts if they're new, choose where to start from now on, say save. All right, so now we've got our trigger set up. So now we have to decide what action we want it to take after the trigger gets activated. So there's so many apps in here. It can be fun sometimes just to, spend a half hour scrolling through all this, see what you recognize, and kind of get the ideas flowing. Or if you've got, a list of platforms you use, like I saw Fireflies in here. I use this to take notes on all my meetings, any listing appointments I do, any training calls for real estate. This transcribes all of it and gives me like a bullet point summary of all my meetings. So I didn't even know until just now that I could interact with that in here. That's awesome. So sometimes it's good just to check your apps and see what you can use. In this, I'm just going to do email. So if you use Gmail or Outlook, you can connect those directly. Otherwise, we're just going to use the email module. And the action we want to take is send an email. Okay, so again, first thing at the top, we want to add a connection. So you've got Gmail, Microsoft if you're using Outlook, or others, and then you'll choose from all of these. If it's other, you're going to have a hard time setting this up. I'm not going to dive into that, and just assume that hopefully you are with Hotmail, Outlook, Zoho. I didn't even know Zoho had mail. Or Gmail. I'm just going to come out of there. All right. So you can also drop down if you've got multiple accounts connected. You can see I've got several different emails connected. I use this for a lot of different systems. So I will use this email. And then we'll just fill this in. So we'll say to, I want to send it to my real estate email. The realtor. Okay, and then you can see when we click on a field, it pulls up all the data from the previous module or modules that we can then drag and drop in here. So we can say, for the subject line, I'll just say new post on public equity Facebook page, and then we can set the content type to plain text, which is, just a text email, or if we do HTML formatting, then we can add in tags, like, new lines. You can do a link to whatever. So HTML is sometimes useful if you want any sort of formatting, or if you want to use ChatGPT to make it fancy, pretty email that you're sending to people. Otherwise, especially when I'm just sending to myself, I like to just send a plain text email. So in this case, I would do the, let's say, link, and we'll grab this from the last module. And maybe if there's a photo, I'll say full picture. So image, picture. Okay, save. So now what we've done is we've set it up so anytime a new post is posted on here, it will send me a notification email. So we'll click save, and then let's jump into a few of these other features. Alright, so the next thing that's important to know is this excuse me, this wrench icon. So if we click on this, it lets us set up filters. There's really not a lot we can do with the filter here. Usually what I would do is, so there's two situations in which you might want to set up a filter. One, if you're grabbing a whole bunch of data from one place and you only want specific data to move on. So for example, if I've got, I don't know, if I'm scraping an entire website, pulling all the data, and then I only wanted to, grab pages that start with a specific URL or that have a specific keyword, then I could set up a filter for that. The other case is if you want to take different actions based on what information is being passed through. So, for example, if you connect like Facebook lead ads, and we should have done this as a trigger. So if we say Facebook lead ads, new lead, and then we'll set that as the trigger. And then we could say, depending on the lead information, so say they fill out a form and they kind of self-identify as like a buyer or a seller lead, then we could have a router here, and move these up out of the way, and we could set up a filter. So we could say if, and this isn't going to give us access to it since I haven't connected it, but we could say if the status is equal to buyer lead, and then we can do a label, so buyer leads only. And then you see that label here, so then we know that only buyer leads are passing up to this section, and we could do the opposite down here. So we'd set up another filter, and we would say, I'm just making this up as I go. This isn't something you need to know how to do. Status is equal to seller lead. And you can also do case insensitive if you don't know how the data is going to come through. So you can see I capitalized this. If I say case insensitive, then it just lowercases everything basically. Okay, so that's how filters work. Let me finish this. Seller leads only. So you can see how that might be useful either to build out multiple paths within a scenario, or to build something that kind of, I guess, filters the data. Okay, sorry, I keep losing my voice here. So now that we've got these set up, I'm going to move the trigger back up here. Something else you can do that just helps with navigation is holding Shift, and then you can drag and select multiple modules at once. So I can hold Shift, I'll grab all of these, right click and delete. I'll just hit delete on my keyboard, and that'll delete all of them. Okay, so now we're back up to here, and we'll go through the rest of these. So I can right click on this and add a note. So if I can say this is linked with equity, so this way I can kind of leave myself notes that explains what the flow is doing. Excuse me. So then I don't have to jump into each of these. I can just leave myself notes along the way and kind of explain this is what this is doing and why. The other reason this is helpful is if you are exporting blueprints. So you can export the blueprints, and that's what I've done for all of these. Wow, sorry, I keep losing my voice today. So we've got the blueprints here, and that's exactly what you get when you export a blueprint. So it just gives you the JSON file that you can send to other people, and then they can upload it into their account. And vice versa, if you haven't already done some of this, you can import a blueprint, choose a file, and use any of these downloads to plug directly into your make.com account, and that's how you can, copy and paste these systems that other people have built. The other cool thing with this is you can... Sorry, I took a 10-minute break to go let my voice calm down and drink water, and I forgot what we were talking about. So the notes. Yes, if you add notes and then you export it as a blueprint, the notes will remain there. So if you add these notes and then someone else adds this into your account, and you want to add specific notes that say, here's how you set this up, here's why this is doing this, then those will stay in the blueprint if you're sending it to other people, which is awesome. And the other thing you can do, let me add a router here, and we're just going to add some dummy things. We'll say ChatGPT, and down here we're going to say, I don't know, maybe we want to send a Slack message. Create a message. Okay. So then what you can do, as your flow gets bigger and more complex, you can have it explain the flow. And so it'll explain, as data comes through, this is the exact order it goes in. So you can see these are labeled first and second. So first it will do everything on this top branch, and then it will do the second branch. Or you can set up a filter so that it will skip the first branch entirely and only do the second or third or fourth branch, whatever you've got set up. So that is really everything you need to know about this. Auto align just makes it pretty because you can, drag and rearrange all these however you like. And then if it gets too messy and you can't follow, just click auto align. That'll bring it all back in line for you. And then we can also do previous versions. So if you've been using your save button and you make changes and screw something up, this is really nice because you can see exactly the time that you have a saved version. So 4:18, I'm going to assume that was 15 minutes ago, not in the future. So if I click that, then it rolls it back to the previous saved version, which is great. So really, that should be all you need to know to get up and running, following along with the videos we do in the Skool community and building some of your own systems, as long as you know how triggers work and how the actions work, how to set up new modules, search for different apps, connect those apps to your account, just add a new connection to each one, fill out anything that's required, so you can see the red star means that field is required. Some of these have, I guess this one doesn't, let's scroll to the bottom, come on, mate, the show advanced settings. You very rarely need to worry about that. That just gives you a few more customization options, but nothing down there is ever required. So as long as you can, set up a new module, get it connected to your own accounts, fill in the required fields here, and then set it on a schedule. So in this case, you'll notice this, let me grab it again, Facebook pages. So you can see these are tagged as acid, meaning it won't immediately grab it. It waits for your timer trigger, basically. So if we have this set up, then it's only going to check it on the timer. So every, let's see, days of the month, I mean, say I want to check this on the, I don't know, maybe the 10th and the 30th of every month at 6 p.m. 6 o'clock p.m. Okay, and then I can save that. So then on the 10th and the 30th of every month, this will check that Facebook page and grab the 3 newest posts and then send me an email about those. Actually, it will send me 3 different emails about those, is how we've set it up right now. I'll probably do a follow-up to this that goes through using some of the make.com tools. So you can see they've got built-in tools, getting and setting variables, doing a sleep delay, some of these aggregators. There's a lot of cool things you can do with that. And the other useful thing, I think, is using the HTTP module to do API requests. So those are a little more complex topics. If anything in this was unclear, though, just throw a comment in the community. So either in the tech support or the general discussion, and then I can tag that to this video. So if you have any questions, sorry I was in and out of the room trying to calm my voice down. So I got lost a little bit. But if there's anything I skipped over, things that didn't make sense, or as you're jumping in and building your own things, questions you have, let me know, and I will do at least 1, maybe 2 more sections in this foundation course just on usingmake.com, and then we'll jump into some other platforms like Zapier and N8N.